They were about to be attacked by intruders.
It happened in Peterborough. The nurses, all trainees, say a group of 4 men managed to get into their accommodation block. The women say they were threatened with rape. 3 times they phoned 999 and 3 times nobody came. It was only when one of them phoned her father and he rang the chief constable that help finally arrived. In a moment I'll be speaking to one of the nurses live, but first this from Joe Black.
It was a terrifying ordeal encountered by 3 trainee nurses that has now led to a personal apology from Cambridge's chief constable. Julie Spence has said sorry for the poor service of her police force. When student nurse Amy Overend and her friends came under attack from a gang of men who wanted to get into their flat and then claimed they were going to rape them, they called 999. It happened at their digs near Peterborough District Hospital when the men sneaked into their accommodation last Monday. But no one from the police came, so they and others called again. Even Amy's father called. It wasn't until 4 hours after the original call that an officer actually arrived.
My greatest fears were for Amy's safety. There were 4 males on site. She didn't know whether they'd left the building or they were still in the building, and she was virtually a prisoner in her own room for 4 or 5 hours.
In a letter to Amy's father, a retired magistrate, Mrs. Spence said although the force was dealing with a high level of calls, there was no excuse for our poor handling of the incident. She's now ordered an investigation. Joe Black, BBC Look East.
Well, let's get the full story from one of those nurses, Amy Overend. She's at Peterborough Hospital now. So what time was this and how threatened did you feel?
They initially came up to our floor at about 7:30, and obviously initially we were very, very frightened that we had 4 males who none of us knew on our floor, obviously being very racially abusive to us and very verbally abusive to us.
And when you phoned the police and told them this was going on, did they say that somebody would be coming, or what did they say?
They said they'd get someone out to us as soon as possible.
And did you ask them how soon as possible would be?
No, because we took it in good faith that as soon as possible, with the police station only being down the road from us, it would only be a matter of minutes.
So they didn't come? So you phoned again?
No, no.
What did they say to you the second time you phoned?
The second time we phoned, I explained the situation again, saying that we'd been waiting for an hour, and they basically turned around and said that now it had been classed as a secondary emergency, basically that because we could lock ourselves in our room, we weren't at an immediate threat, even though they were still on the premises. I then again explained that, you know, we were very frightened. They were still shouting abuse at us from the rooftop, and that, you know, someone really should come out.
What's your reaction when they say that this wasn't an immediate crisis, that you did have some protection from these people?
Obviously, I was quite shocked at the fact that they said that it was only classed as a secondary emergency. I mean, it makes you wonder what classes as a first-degree emergency. But obviously, you know, we don't ring 999 for just anything, and, you know, we ring them for a real reason. So we obviously thought, well, obviously, if they think the situation's only not that serious, then, you know, maybe we were making more of a to-do than anything else. But obviously when I spoke to my father and told him what was going on, obviously that kind of brought it to light to us that it was unacceptable what had happened.
When the police finally did get to you, were they apologetic?
I had a phone call before the police officer arrived explaining that they'd had a high number of calls and that you know, it should never have happened that way, and that our incident, you know, was going to be informally investigated. But once the police officer was here, you know, I can't fault him. He was brilliant towards us, and, you know, he really sat us down, talked us through everything, went through everything bit by bit, and, you know, really reassured us. He gave us some contact numbers of people who would come and do a security survey for us. So once the police officer finally got here, I couldn't fault him, but it was just that initial getting him here that was the problem.
Well, we're glad to see you're all fit and well, so thank you very much for being with us tonight.
OK, thank you. Bye-bye.
Another 16,000 workers have lost their jobs as the recession continues to bite, and the sheer number of people seeking help has led to criticism that job centres can't cope.
Yes, the latest unemployment figures make grim reading, and there's not much cheer here either for students and school leavers who are starting the search for work. The new jobless total for our region stands tonight at 194,000. That's up 16,000 on the first quarter of the year. It means 6.5% of the region's workforce is now out of work. That compares with 7.8% in the UK as a whole, so we are still better off than most regions. In the last year, the regional jobless total has swollen by 59,000. And some say that is putting pressure on job centres as they struggle to help people find new jobs.
Mark Snelling is a car mechanic by trade, but he's been out of work for 6 months. Mark has been going to the job centre in Norwich on a regular basis, but says the staff are well-meaning, but essentially useless. Appointments are brief, good information is hard to find, and he often gets conflicting advice.
You get 5 minutes interview, which is hardly time to discuss your whole needs, really, to be perfectly honest. And every time you ask them a question, you tend to get passed to another advisor with another appointment, and subsequently that advisor says the same as the first one, so it swings and roundabouts, just goes round and round and round.
Not everyone agrees. Some people leaving the job centre said staff were doing their best.
They're really good.
They can't make work, can they?
They've been quite helpful. They've been very helpful, yeah.
At this recruitment agency in Ipswich, they're busier than ever and say the nature of the job market is changing.
We're now getting people come into us from quite varied backgrounds, some of them quite qualified, willing to do, factory-based jobs, cleaning jobs, those kinds of things that they probably wouldn't have dreamed of doing 18 months ago.
Despite today's grim figures, there are still jobs out there. In Northamptonshire, this travel agency is struggling to recruit.
I would have expected it to become easier. It hasn't got any worse, but it's just never got any better, and that's what I think, to me, really surprised me. I thought people would be banging on my door saying, can I have a job, please?
Every week I've been coming down here and I see more and more people turning up. I'm searching every type of place that I can to try and find work, even outside of my area. And everybody's saying the same thing. They're having 500 employees to one job. And subsequently, a lot of employers don't even write back to you to say, you haven't been successful because they're too busy.
Mark Snelling is still searching for a job. He's also set up a petition online to try and put pressure on the job centre service to get its act together before the situation gets worse. Mike Liggins, BBC Look East, Norwich.